Bumper Hornberger. You have no idea what a treat you're in for. How many of you have heard Bumper before? Okay. Jacob Hornberger. A lot of people know him as Bumper. I'm not even sure why. But that's what he goes by. And my first introduction as a young man was to the Freedom Daily, and that's about probably 91, 92, around in there, that a friend of mine got this. And whenever he got done reading it, he would give it to me. And I'd read the articles in there and stuff Bumper had to say. And you have to understand, in my day, you know, if you had, I know somebody that has a fax machine. Seriously. You know, you guys are, I didn't get my first email until 94. So if you were reading about freedom, if you were trying to understand the issues and concepts that was contrary to what the mainstream media, the media so last century was saying, you went to things like Freedom Daily. Future Freedom Foundation was supported by a lot of people that supported a lot of stuff that we did in Arizona. We had common friends that, you know, were very big, that I respected a great deal. That was my exposure to Jacob Hornberger. Was through people that I had already respected as being lovers of freedom, and they would send money. They would do fundraisers. They would advocate people subscribing to his booklet. They would support Jacob Hornberger. So immediately I'm paying attention. Who is this guy? Well, you're going to find out. He is one of the lights, one of the sources, one of the roots of this grapevine that you see now was enormously nurtured, and part of what you're benefiting from right now came from Jacob Hornberger. Come on up.
The ancient Chinese symbol for crisis perfectly depicts the situation that we're faced with in the United States today. Actually, this symbol was a combination of two separate symbols. One symbol denoted the word danger, and the other symbol denoted the word opportunity. And the Chinese put these two symbols together to form the word crisis. The danger that we're facing in this country today comes in the form of a perfect storm. On one half of that storm is the U.S. government's warfare state. And the other half involves the U.S. government's welfare state. It is a perfect storm that constitutes the greatest threat to our freedom and our well-being in our lifetime, and possibly the history of this country. It is a threat that comes at the hands of our very own government. Consider the warfare state. We now live in a country in which the federal government has the power to detain Americans indefinitely, without a trial, to torture Americans, even to assassinate Americans. As we all know, that's what they're doing to foreigners. Right now, they're assassinating people in Pakistan, Yemen, Somalia. There's no trial. There's no judicial process. The determination on who's going to be taken out is made by a bureaucrat or a team of bureaucrats. And the determination is final. It's conclusive. Where does this power come from? They say it comes from their so-called war on terror. A war in which they converted a criminal act, terrorism, which is listed in the U.S. Code as a crime, which is why they've prosecuted people for terrorism for eons. But simply through their announcement that this crime was now converted into an act of war, they say that gave them these omnipotent powers. And they have emphasized from the get-go that this is a global war on terror. It's not just limited to Yemen and Pakistan or Africa or Latin America or Europe, that the entire world is the battlefield. And in that message is that right here in the United States, which they say is the primary target of the terrorists, this global war on terror encompasses. A few years ago, they took an American into custody. They turned him over to the military. When he said, "I want a lawyer," they said, "You don't get no lawyer. This is America. You're an enemy of this country. You don't get a trial either, because we have the authority to hold you for the rest of your life under a life sentence with no trial, because you're an enemy. And we get to make that determination in this new world order." They tortured him using techniques that the CIA and the military had acquired from the North Korean communists, who had used them so effectively against American prisoners of war, turning their minds into mush and making them confess to crimes they had never committed. Sensory deprivation, goggles, sound suppressors, isolation, what they call touchless torture. But what was most important about this was not just that particular case, but the message that was sent to every American. We not only have the authority to do this to this man, we have the authority to do this to every American. And this mindset was reflected when they assassinated an American traveling in Yemen several years ago, post 9/11, traveling in a car where they just took him out. This mindset was reflected most recently in the case of the alleged Detroit bomber, where the statists, both liberals and conservatives, were saying, "Turn him over to the military. He's an enemy. He's caught on the battlefield here in the United States. Torture him. Do whatever is necessary to make him talk." In other words, what the statists did to Randy Weaver's wife when they put that bullet right into her forehead as she held her baby and was unarmed at Ruby Ridge, Idaho. What they did to Randy Weaver's son when they shot him in the back. Indeed, what they did to those Branch Davidians at Waco when they injected that flammable gas into that building that had all those children in it, and then bulldoze the entire site so that there could not be an investigation. They can now do legally and with impunity to anyone they want, as long as they label him a terrorist. And don't think that anybody's going to be suing. The survivors are going to be suing like Randy Weaver did when he secured a settlement from the federal government for doing that to his family. Because the courts are holding that now in this new world order, this has implications of national security. And they're never, ever going to force the CIA to reveal the identity of its assassins.